February 29. I'm feeling a bit shit this evening, so I've decided to make a very morbid video. Which is called Facts About Death. And yeah, I don't really care if this is miserable. I'm in one of those moods, I just don't really care right now. And I wanted to do something, so I thought I'd make a fact video. And I thought, what can I do that's a bit depressing? I thought death is quite depressing, it normally pisses people off. So I'm going to do a video about death. So enjoy. A few facts for you. As usual, I don't know how long it will last, but it will last as long as it lasts. Apparently, these are unique facts about death. So, yeah, let's just do it. The practice of burying the dead may date back to 350,000 years, as evidenced by a 45-foot deep pit in Atapuerca, Spain, filled with the fossils of 27 hominids of the species Homo heidelbergensis, a possible ancestor of Neanderthals and modern humans. Never say die. There are at least 20 euphemisms for death, including to be in Abraham's bosom, just add maggots, and sleep with the Tribbles, a Star Trek favourite. I don't get that one. No American has died of old age since 1951. That can't be right. Surely that says something about the amount of medication that people are pumping into themselves these days. Number 4. That was the year that the government eliminated the classification on death certificates. Sorry, that wasn't written very well. That was the year the government eliminated the classification on death certificates. The trigger of death in all cases is lack of oxygen. Its decline may prompt muscle spasms or the agonal phase, from the Greek word agon or contest. Within 3 days of death, the enzymes that once digested your dinner begin to eat you. Ruptured cells become food for living bacteria in the gut, which release enough noxious gas to bloat the body and force the eyes to bulge outward. So much for recycling. Burials in America deposit 827,060 gallons of embalming fluid, formaldehyde, methanol and ethanol into the soil each year. Cremation pumps dioxins, hydrochloric acid, sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide into the air. Brilliant. Alternatively, a Swedish company, Promessa, will freeze dry your body in liquid nitrogen, pulverise it with high-frequency vibrations, and seal the resulting powder in a cornstarch coffin. They claim this ecological burial will decompose in 6 to 12 months. Brilliant. Zoroastrians in India leave out the bodies of the dead to be consumed by vultures. The vultures are now dying after eating cattle carcasses dosed with diclofenac, an anti-inflammatory used to relieve fever in livestock. I used to take diclofenac. Queen Victoria insisted on being buried with the bathrobe of her long-dead husband, Prince Albert, and a plaster cast of his hand. That's quite sweet. I like that. If this doesn't work, we're trying in vitro. In Madagascar, families dig up the bones of dead relatives and parade them around the village in a ceremony called Famadiana. The remains are then wrapped in a new shroud and reburied. The old shroud is given to a newly married, childless couple to cover the connubial bed. During a railway expansion in Egypt in the 19th century, construction companies unearthed so many mummies that they used them as fuel for locomotives. How does that work? English philosopher Francis Bacon, a founder of the scientific method, died in 1626 of pneumonia after stuffing a chicken with snow to see if cold would preserve it. He stuffed a chicken with snow. That's funny. For organs to form during embryonic development, some cells must commit suicide. With such programmed cell death, we would all be born with without such programmed cell death, we would all be born with webbed feet like ducks. Some people still have got webbed feet. Waiting to exhale. In 1907, a Massachusetts doctor conducted an experiment with specially designed. You can't really see it. Sorry about the lighting. He's trying for my cup of tea. No. It's my tea. Anyway. No. Here he comes. Okay. In 1907, a Massachusetts doctor conducted an experiment with a specially designed deathbed and reported that human bodies lost 21 grams upon dying. This has been widely held as fact ever since. It's not. This has been written very well. In 19th century Europe, there was so much anecdotal evidence that living people were mistakenly declared dead that cadavers were laid out in hospitals for the dead while attendants awaited signs of putrefaction. I'm sure it's putrefaction. 80% of people in the US die in a hospital. If you can't... Oh, more people commit suicide in New York City than are murdered. That's quite interesting. It's estimated that 100 billion people have died since humans began. Okay, and here are 10 bizarre death-related facts. I'm just going to have a sip of drink actually. So that's not going to be nasty with me up. Okay. Similar to a fact we heard earlier, a Swedish company will pulverise your body and bury it in a cornstarch urn, providing a complete biodegradable burial. Shortly after your death, within 1.5 weeks, your corpse is frozen to -18 degrees, causing the body to become very brittle. It is then subjected to vibrations that render you to a frozen powder. This powder is then placed in the vacuum tube which extracts all the water, resulting in a dry powder. The powder is then put through a metal separator, removing fillings and other metal objects that have become part of your body over your lifetime. The powder is then placed in a cornstarch coffin for burial at any time in the future. The organic powder, which is hygienic and odourless, does not decompose when kept dry. The burial takes place in a shallow grave in living soil. That turns the coffin and its contents into compost in about 6 to 12 months' time. If you are interested in one of these burials, the Promessa website is here. If you are wanting a more permanent resting place, you might want to look at the next item instead: life gems. A US company will take your remains and turn them into diamonds which can be used by your loved ones. The company uses the cremated remains of you or your pets to create synthetic diamonds which range in weight and price. A full human body can provide sufficient carbon to make up to 50 1-carat diamonds, which cost around $14,000 each. Dollars, obviously. After the carbon from the corpse is purified, it is converted to graphite, which is then used in the synthetic diamond process. The resulting diamond is is engraved with the name of the dead and is accompanied by a certificate of authenticity. In 2007, the company used carbon extracted from strands of hair from Ludwig van Beethoven to produce 3 diamonds for charity. LifeGem retained 1 diamond. They donated 1 to John Resnikoff, who provided the hair sample, and the 3rd was sold on eBay for $202,000. Tibetan Buddhists cut and beat a dead body, including the bones, into a pulp and leave the results for vultures to eat. This is all going to be facts that I've just read out, which I can't be bothered to go through again. Thomas Edison's dying breath was captured in a bottle. Thomas Edison, the well-known inventor who perfected the modern light bulb, was friends with Henry Ford, founder of the Ford Motor Company, and considered to be a father of modern assembly lines. As Edison lay dying, Ford convinced his son Charles to fill a bottle with Edison's dying breath. Charles complied by bottling some of the air in the room. The whereabouts of the bottle is unknown. Pictured above is Edison's dead wife. Ancient British people employed a sin eater to eat the sins of the dead. Nice. In ancient England, Scotland and Wales, each village had a member, usually a beggar, who was designated sin eater. When a person died in the village, the sin eater would be called into their home. A relative would place a loaf of bread on the chest of the dead and pass a cup of ale to the sin eater across it. The sin eater would drink the ale and eat the bread, thereby eating the sins of the dead person. The origins of this bizarre practice are unknown, but it's believed to have continued into modern times in Wales. Victorians photographed their dead because they could seldom afford a picture of them alive. Photography was still relatively new in the Victorian era, and the difficulty in staying still long enough for a high-quality photograph and the extremely high price of painted portrait meant that many Victorians would have a photograph taken of a loved one after they died as a memento. This practice, memento mori, also meant that photographs could be sent to distant relatives who may never have met a young child who died. It was not uncommon for members of the family to pose with the dead in a kind of macabre family portrait. Pictured above is an authentic post-mortem photograph taken for this purpose. Again, I don't know if you can see, but that is a baby. It's a little coffin with flowers around it. It's a bit creepy. Some humans turn into soap after they die. You can see that. That's the picture, you can't really see it, but it's horrible. In a process known as saponification, some human bodies turn partly or completely into soap. Adiposia, known as grave wax. The fatty tissue of the body, along with other liquids from putrefaction, slowly form into lumps of adiposia. This happens to both embalmed and non-embalmed bodies. It's especially common in people with large fat deposits in their body prior to death. The famous Mutter Museum has an exhibit of the soap lady, who is entirely composed of grave wax, which is what I just tried to show you. On occasion, these deposits can be seen leaking from closed tombs. And you can now be buried in space, which I'm not going to read out because it's ridiculous. So, there's a very miserable video for you, with a few interruptions. I do apologise. I hope you enjoyed listening. Thank you as always. Take care.